Hello, welcome to the Joyful House and welcome to Once Upon a Storybook. Today we are continuing the Anna Green Gables series with book number 5, Anne's House of Dreams. Today we're looking at chapters 21 and chapters 22. Chapter 21 is Barriers Swept Away, and chapter 22 is Miss Cornelia Arranges Things. So if you're ready for today's storybook adventure, then sit back, relax, maybe grab a project, and let's enjoy. Chapter 21, Barriers Swept Away. "Anne," said Leslie, breaking abruptly a short silence, "you don't know how good it is to be sitting here with you again, working and talking and being silent together." They were sitting among the blue-eyed grasses on the bank of the brook in Anne's garden. The water sparkled and crooned past them. The birches threw dappled shadows over them, and roses bloomed along the walks. The sun was beginning to be low, and the air was full of woven music. There was one music of the wind in the firs behind the house, and another on the waves on the bar, and still another from the distant bell of the church, near which the wee white lady slept. Anne loved that bell, even though it brought sorrowful thoughts now. She looked curiously at Leslie, who had thrown down her sewing and spoken with a lack of restraint that was very unusual with her. "On that horrible night when you were so ill," Leslie went on, "I kept thinking that perhaps we'd have no more talks and walks and works together. And I realized just what your friendship had come to mean to me, just what you meant to me, and just what a hateful little beast I had been. Leslie, Leslie, I never allow anyone to call my friends names. It's true, that's exactly what I am, a hateful little beast. There's something I've got to tell you, Anne, and I suppose it will make you despise me, but I must confess it. And there have been times this past winter and spring when I have hated you." "I knew it," said Anne calmly. "You knew it?" "Yes, I saw it in your eyes." "And yet you went on liking me and being my friend?" "Well, it was only now and then that you hated me, Leslie. And between times you loved me, I think." "I certainly did, but that other horrid feeling was always there, spoiling it, back in my heart. I kept it down, and sometimes I forgot it, but sometimes it would surge up and take possession of me. I hated you because I envied you. Oh, I was so sick of envy with you at times. You had a dear little home, and love, and happiness, and glad dreams, everything I wanted, and never had, and never could have. Oh, never, never could have. That was what stung. I wouldn't have envied you if I had any hope that life would ever be different for me. But I hadn't, and it didn't seem fair. It made me rebellious, and it hurt me, and so I hated you at times. Oh, I was so ashamed of it. I'm dying of shame now, but I couldn't conquer it. That night when I was afraid that you mightn't live, I thought I was going to be punished for my wickedness. And I loved you so then, and I've never had anything to love since my mother died except Dick's old dog, and it's so dreadful to have nothing to love. Life is so empty, and there's nothing worse than emptiness. And I might have loved you so much, and that horrible thing had spoiled it." Leslie was trembling and growing almost incoherent with the violence of her emotion. "Don't, Leslie," implored Anne. "Oh, don't. I understand. Don't talk of it any more." "I must. I must. When I knew you were going to live, I vowed that I would tell you as soon as you were well, that I wouldn't go on accepting your friendship and companionship without telling you how unworthy I was of it. And I've been so afraid it would turn you against me. You needn't fear that, Leslie. Oh, I'm so glad, Anne. Leslie clasped her brown, work-hardened hands tightly together to still her shaking. But I want to tell you something. Now I've begun. You don't remember the first time I saw you, I suppose. It wasn't that night on the shore. No, it was the night that Gilbert and I came home. You were driving your geese down the hill. I should think I do remember it. I thought you were so beautiful, and I longed for weeks after to find out who you were. I knew who you were, although I'd never seen either of you before. I'd heard of the new doctor and his bride who were coming to live in Miss Russell's little house. I hated you at that very moment, Anne. I felt the resentment in your eyes. Then I doubted. I thought I might have been mistaken. Because why should it be? It was because you looked so happy. Oh, you'll agree with me that I am a hateful beast. To hate another woman just because she's happy? And when her happiness didn't take anything from me? That's why I never went to see you. I knew quite well I ought to go. Even our simple Four Winds customs demanded that. But I couldn't. I used to watch you from my windows. I could see you and your husband strolling about your garden in the evening, or you running down the popular lane to meet him, and it hurt me. And yet, in another way, I wanted to go over. I felt that if I were not so miserable, I would have liked you and found in you what I've never had in my life. An intimate, real friend of my own age. And then you remember that night at the shore? You were afraid that I would think you crazy. You must have thought I was. No, I couldn't understand you, Leslie. One moment you drew to me, and the next you pushed me back. I was very unhappy that evening. I'd had a hard day. Dick had been very, very hard to manage that day. Generally, he is a quite good-natured and easily controlled, you know, Anne. But some days he's very different. And I was so heartsick. I ran away to the shore as soon as he went to sleep. It was my only refuge. And I sat there thinking of how my poor father had ended his life, and wondering if I wouldn't be driven to it some day. Oh, my heart was full of black thoughts. And then you came dancing along the cove like a glad, light-hearted child. I hated you more than I'd ever done since. And yet, I craved your friendship. The one feeling swayed me one moment and the other the next. And when I got home that night, I cried for shame of what you must think of me. But it's always been just the same when I came over here. Sometimes I'd be happy and enjoy my visit, and at other times that hideous feeling would mar it all. There were times when everything about you and your house hurt me. You had so many dear little things that I couldn't have. Do you know? It's ridiculous. But I had an especial spite at those China dogs of yours. There were times when I wanted to catch up Gog and Magog and bang their pert black noses together. Oh, you smile, Anne, but it was never funny to me. I would have come here and seen you and Gilbert with your books and your flowers and your household gods and your little family jokes and your love for each other showing in every look and word, even when you didn't know it. And I would go home to, well, you know what I went home to. Oh, Anne, I don't believe I'm jealous and envious by nature. When I was a girl, I lacked many things my schoolmates had, but I never cared. I never disliked them for it, but I seem to have grown so hateful. Leslie, dearest, stop blaming yourself. You are not hateful or jealous or envious. The life you have to live has warped you a little, perhaps, but it would have ruined a nature less fine and nobler than yours. I'm letting you tell me all this because I believe it's better for you to talk it out and rid your soul of it. But don't blame yourself anymore. Well, I won't. I just wanted you to know me as I am. That time you told me of your darling hope for the spring was the worst of all, Anne. I shall never forgive myself for the way I behaved then. I repented it with tears, and I did put many a tender and loving thought of you into the little dress I made. But I might have known that anything I made could only be a shroud in the end. Now, Leslie, that is a bitter and morbid, put such thoughts away. I was so glad when you brought that little dress. And since I had to lose little Joyce, I like to think that the dress she wore was the one you made for her when you let yourself love me. And do you know, I believe I shall always love you after this. I don't think I'll ever feel that dreadful way about you again. Talking it all out seems to have done away with it. Somehow. It's very strange, and I thought it so real and bitter. It's like opening the door of a dark room to show some hideous creature you've believed to be there, and when the light streams in, your monster turns out to have just been a shadow, vanishing when the light comes in. It will never come between us again. No, we are real friends now, Leslie, and I am very glad. I hope you won't misunderstand me if I say something else, Anne. I was grieved to the core of my heart when you lost your baby, and if I could have saved her for you by cutting off one of my hands, I'd have done it. But your sorrow has brought us closer together. Your perfect happiness isn't a barrier any longer. Oh, don't misunderstand, dearest. I'm not glad that your happiness isn't perfect any longer. I can say that sincerely. But since it isn't, there isn't such a gulf between us. I do understand that too, Leslie. Now we'll just shut up the past and forget what was unpleasant in it. It's all going to be different. We're both of the race of Joseph now. I think you've been wonderful, wonderful. And Leslie, I can't help believing that life has something good and beautiful for you yet. Leslie shook her head. No, she said dully, there isn't any hope. Dick will never be better, and even if his memory were to come back, oh, Anne, it would be worse, even worse, than it is now. This is something that you can't understand. You happy bride. Anne, did Miss Cornelia ever tell you how I came to marry Dick? Yes. I'm glad. I wanted you to know, but I couldn't bring myself to talk of it even if you hadn't known. And it seems to me that ever since I was 12 years old, life has been bitter. Before that, I had a happy childhood. We were very poor, but we didn't mind. Father was so splendid, so clever and loving and sympathetic. We were chums as far back as I can remember, and Mother was so sweet. She was very, very beautiful. I look like her, but I'm not so beautiful as she was. Miss Cornelia says you are far more beautiful. She is mistaken or prejudiced. I think my figure is better. Mother was slight and bent by hard work, but she had the face of an angel. I used to just look up at her and worship. We all worshipped her, Father and Kenneth and I. Anne remembered that Miss Cornelia had given her a very different impression of Leslie's mother, but had not loved the truer vision. Still, it was selfish of Rose West to make her daughter marry Dick Moore. Kenneth was my brother, went on Leslie. Oh, I can't tell you how I loved him. And he was cruelly killed. Do you know how? Yes. And I saw his little face as that wheel went over him. He fell on his back, Anne. And I can see it now. I shall always see it. And all I ask of heaven is that that recollection shall be blotted out of my memory. Oh, my God. Leslie, don't speak of it. I know the story. Don't go into details that only harrow your soul up availingly. It will be blotted out. After a moment's struggle, Leslie regained a measure of self-control. Then Father's health got worse. As he grew despondent, his mind became unbalanced. You've heard all that too. Yes. After that, I just had Mother to live for, but I was very ambitious. I meant to teach and earn my way through college. I meant to climb to the very top. Oh, I won't talk of that either. It's no use. You know what happened. I couldn't see my dear little heartbroken mother, who had been such a slave all her life, turned out of her home. Of course, I could have earned enough for us to live on, but Mother couldn't leave her home. She had come there as a bride, and she had loved Father so, and all her memories were there. Even yet, Anne, and when I think that I made her last year happy, I'm not sorry for what I did. As for Dick, I didn't hate him when I married him. I just felt for him the indifferent, friendly feeling I had for most of my schoolmates. I knew he drank some, but I never heard the story of the girl down at the fishing cove. If I had, I couldn't have married him, even for Mother's sake. Afterwards, I did hate him, but Mother never knew. She died, and then I was alone. I was only 17 and I was alone. Dick had gone off in the Four Sisters. I hoped he wouldn't be home very much more. The sea had always been in his blood. I had no other hope. Well, Captain Jim brought him home, as you know, and that's all there is to say. You know me now, Anne, the worst of me. The barriers are all down, and you still want to be my friend. Anne looked up through the birches at the white paper lantern of a half-moon drifting downwards to the gulf of sunset. Her face was very sweet. I am your friend, and you are mine, for always, she said. Such a friend as I've never had before. I've had many dear and beloved friends, but there is something in you, Leslie, that I've never found in anyone else. You have more to offer me in that rich nature of yours, and I have more to give you than I had in my careless girlhood. We are both women, and friends forever. They clasped hands and smiled at each other through the tears that filled the gray eyes and the blue. Chapter 22. Miss Cornelia Arranges Matters. Gilbert insisted that Susan should be kept on at the little house for the summer, and Anne protested at first. Life here with just the two of us is so sweet, Gilbert. It spoils it a little to have someone else. Susan is a dear soul, but she is an outsider. It won't hurt me to do the work here. You must take the doctor's advice, said Gilbert. There's an old proverb to the effect that shoemakers' wives go barefoot and doctors' wives die young. I don't mean that it shall be true in my household. You'll keep Susan on until the old spring comes back into your step and those little hollows on your cheeks fill out. You just take it easy, Mrs. Doctor dear, said Susan, coming abruptly in. Have a good time and do not worry about the pantry. Susan is at the helm. There is no use in keeping a dog and doing your own barking. I'm going to take your breakfast up to you every morning. Indeed you are not, laughed Anne. I agree with Miss Cornelia that it's a scandal for a woman who isn't sick to eat her breakfast in bed and almost justifies the men in any enormities. Oh, Cornelia, said Susan, with ineffable contempt. I think you have better sense, Mrs. Doctor dear, than to heed what Cornelia Bryant says. I cannot see why she must be always running down the men, even if she is an old maid. I am an old maid, but you never hear me abusing the men. I like 'em. I would have married one if I could. Is it not funny that nobody ever asked me to marry him, Mrs. Doctor dear? I'm no beauty, but I am as good-looking as most of the married women you see. But I never had a beau. What do you suppose is the reason? It may be predestination, suggested Anne, with unearthly solemnity. Susan nodded. That is what I've often thought, Mrs. Doctor dear, and a great comfort it is. I do not mind that nobody wanting me if the Almighty decreed it so for his own wise purposes. But sometimes doubt creeps in, Mrs. Doctor dear, and I wonder if maybe the old scratch has not more to do with it than anything else. I cannot feel resigned then. But maybe, added Susan, brightening up, I will have a chance to get married yet. I often and often think of the old verse my aunt used to repeat. There never was a goose so gray, but sometime soon or late, some honest gander came her way and took her for his mate. A woman cannot ever be sure of not being married till she is buried, Mrs. Doctor dear. And meanwhile I will make a batch of cherry pies. I notice that the doctor favors 'em, and I do like cooking for a man who appreciates his victuals. Miss Cornelia dropped in that afternoon, puffing a little. I don't mind the world or the devil much, but the flesh does rather bother me, she admitted. You always look as cool as a cucumber, Anne dearie. Do I smell cherry pie? If I do, ask me to stay for tea. Haven't tasted a cherry pie this entire summer. My cherries have all been stolen by those scamps of Gilman boys from the Glen. Now, Cornelia, remonstrated Captain Jim, who had been reading a sea novel in a corner of the living room. You shouldn't say that about those two poor, motherless little Gilman boys, unless you've got certain proof. Just because their father ain't none too honest isn't any reason for calling them thieves. It's more likely it's been the robins that took your cherries. They're terrible thick this year. Robins, said Miss Cornelia disdainfully. Huh, two-legged robins? Believe me. Robins, said Miss Cornelia disdainfully. Huh. Well, most of the Four Winds robins are constructed on that principle, said Captain Jim gravely. Miss Cornelia stared at them for a moment. Then she leaned back in her rocker and laughed long and ungrudgingly. Well, you've got one on me at last, Jim Boyd, I'll admit. Just look how pleased he is, Anne dearie, grinning like a Chessy cat. As for the robin legs, if robins have great big bare sunburned legs with ragged trousers hanging on 'em, such as I saw up in my cherry tree one morning at sunrise last week, I'll beg the Gilman boys' pardon. By the time I got down they were gone, and I couldn't understand how they disappeared so quick. But Captain Jim has enlightened me. They flew away, of course. Captain Jim laughed and went away, regretfully declining an invitation to stay to supper and partake of cherry pie. I'm on my way to see Leslie and ask her if she'll take a boarder, Miss Cornelia resumed. I had a letter yesterday from a Mrs. Daly in Toronto, who boarded a spell with me 2 years ago. She wanted me to take a friend of hers for the summer. His name is Owen Ford, and he's a newspaper man, and it seems he's a grandson of the schoolmaster who built this house. John Celin's oldest daughter married an Ontario man named Ford, and this is her son. He wants to see the old place his grandparents lived in. He had a bad spell of typhoid in the spring and hasn't gotten rightly over it, so his doctor has ordered him to the sea. He doesn't want to go to the hotel. He just wants a quiet home place. I can't take him, for I have to be away in August. I've been appointed to delegate to the WFMS convention in Kingsport, and I'm going. I don't know whether Leslie will want to be bothered with him either, but there's no one else. If she can't take him, he'll have to go over to the harbor. When you've seen her come back and help us eat our cherry pie, said Anne. Bring Leslie and Dick, too, if they can come. And so you're going to Kingsport. What a nice time you're going to have. I must give you a letter to a friend of mine there, Mrs. Jonas Blake. I've prevailed on Mrs. Thomas Holt to go with me, said Miss Cornelia complacently. It's time she had a little holiday. Believe me. She has just about worked herself to death. Tom Holt can crochet beautifully, but he can't make a living for his family. He never seems to be able to get up early enough to do any work, but I notice he can always get up early to go fishing. Isn't that like a man? Anne smiled. She had learned to discount largely Miss Cornelia's opinions of the Four Winds men. Otherwise, she must have believed them the most hopeless assortment of reprobates and ne'er-do-wells in the world with veritable slaves and martyrs for wives. This particular Tom Holt, for example, she knew to be a kind husband and a much-loved father and an excellent neighbor. If he were rather inclined to be lazy, liked better the fishing he had been born for than the farming he had not, and if he had a harmless eccentricity for doing fancy work, nobody save Miss Cornelia seemed to hold it against him. His wife was a hustler who gloried in hustling. His family got a comfortable living off the farm, and his strapping sons and daughters, inheriting their mother's energy, were all in a fair way to do well in the world. There was not a happier household in Glen St. Mary than the Holts. Mrs. Cornelia returned satisfied from the house up the brook. Leslie is going to take him, she announced. She jumped at the chance. She wants to make a little money to shingle the roof of her house this fall, and she didn't know how she was going to manage it. I expect Captain Jim will be more than interested when he hears that a grandson of the Solins is coming here. Leslie said to tell you she hankered after cherry pie, but she couldn't come to tea because she had to go and hunt up her turkeys. They've strayed away. But she said if there was a piece left for you to put it in the pantry, and she'd run over in the cat's light when prowling it's in order to get it. You don't know, Anne, dearie, what good it did my heart to hear Leslie send you a message like that, laughing like she used to so long ago. There's a great change come over her lately. She laughs and jokes like a girl, and from her talk I gather she's here real often. Every day, or else I'm over there, said Anne. I don't know what I'd do without Leslie, especially now with Gilbert is so busy. He's hardly ever home except for a few hours in the wee sma's. He's really working himself to death. So many of the over-harbor people send for him now. They might better be content with their own doctor, said Miss Cornelia. Though to be sure, I can't blame them, for he is a Methodist. Ever since Dr. Blythe brought Mrs. Allenby round, folks think he can raise the dead. I believe Dr. Dave is a mite jealous, just like a man. He thinks Dr. Blythe has too many newfangled notions. Well, I says to him, it was a newfangled notion that saved Rhoda Allenby. If you'd been attending her, she'd have died and had a tombstone saying it had pleased God to take her away. Oh, I do like to speak my mind to Dr. Dave. He's bossed the Glen for years, and he thinks he's forgotten more than other people ever knew. Speaking of doctors, I wish that Dr. Blythe's run over and see to that boil on Dick Moore's neck. It's getting past Leslie's skill. I'm sure I don't know what Dick Moore wants to start in having boils for, as if it wasn't enough trouble without that. Do you know Dick has taken quite a fancy to me, said Anne. He follows me around like a dog and smiles just like a pleased child when I notice him. Doesn't it make you creepy? Not at all. I rather like poor Dick Moore. He seems so pitiful and appealing somehow. You wouldn't think him very appealing if you'd seen him in his cantankerous days, believe me. But I'm glad you don't mind him. It's all the nicer for Leslie. She'll have more to do when her boarder comes. I hope he'll be a decent creature. You'll probably like him. He's a writer. I wonder why people so commonly suppose that if two individuals are both writers, that they must therefore be hugely congenial, said Anne rather scornfully. Nobody would expect two blacksmiths to be violently attracted towards each other merely because they were both blacksmiths. Nevertheless, she looked forward to the advent of Owen Ford with a pleasant sense of expectation. If he were young and likable, he might prove a very pleasable addition to society in Four Winds. The latch string of the little house was always out for the race of Joseph. Well, that includes our storybook adventure for today. I hope you have enjoyed the pleasantries of these two chapters, and I look forward to meeting with you again as we continue to read this book. Well, until then, be joyful and be the joy in everything you do. And I'll see you next time. Bye.